Hi there, it's great to see you. Thanks for stopping by today and spending a little time together. I really appreciate it. I'm John Merriman, and this is your Tuesday morning guitar song. You can talk about the history of popular music in this country and all the media darling cities where it started, like New Orleans in jazz, or Chicago in the blues, maybe Nashville in country music, and Detroit and Motown. But there's a city you're leaving out, and this city did a lot of the heavy lifting for popular music for us in this country. It is arguably one of the greatest musical centers that we have. It is Philadelphia. Philadelphia gave us a lot of our early rock and roll and pop music with Chubby Checker, Bill Haley and the Comets. All those young teen idols like Fabian and Bobby Rydell, they all came from Philadelphia, and they were being shepherded by a young Philadelphia disc jockey by the name of Dick Clark, and his program, American Bandstand. The jazz movement in this country was highly influenced by Stan Getz from Philadelphia. And hip-hop and hardcore rap, a lot of that came straight from downtown Philadelphia. In the 1960s and early 1970s, there was a genius songwriting and record-producing duo that worked as a team, Kenny Gamble and Leon Huff. And they created the Philadelphia sound. It was the sweet sound of Philadelphia soul music. It was the Delphonics, the Stylistics, the Intruders, and so many more. And our featured artists today were raised on the magic of Philadelphia soul music, Daryl Hall and John Oates. Daryl Hall, he was born in 1947 on the outskirts of Philly. His parents were classically trained musicians, and at an early age he started classical training, and he became a very good pianist at an early age. When he was a teenager, he would hitchhike into downtown Philadelphia to take part in the music scene, and there he met Kenny Gamble and Leon Huff. And they were curious and fascinated and really impressed by this young, blue-eyed soul singer. They were so impressed that they asked him to do music with them, and they even hired him to sing backup on some of their records. So as a teenager, Daryl Hall was singing backup for the Stylistics and the Delphonics. He was accumulating incredible musical credentials in soul music at a very early age. And at 18 years old, he went on to Temple University in Philadelphia and majored in music. John Oates was also born and raised on the outskirts of Philly. He did not know Daryl Hall as a young man. He was about 3 years younger. At 5 years old, he started playing guitar, and he was a natural. He was just a natural at this blue-eyed Philadelphia soul, and he started playing in soul bands at a very early age around Philadelphia, all the way until he enrolled in Temple University in 1967. And that's where the two met. 1967, Temple University. Well, there were some comings and goings for 2 years, and in 1969 they formulated their partnership, Daryl Hall and John Oates, singer-songwriter and performers. Well, now that's 1969. Now if you're tracking this, it was 1980 before they made it really mega big. That's 11 years. That's 11 years of hard work, of hanging in there, of not giving up, of reformulating, trying different things, grinding through defeats of few victories, but they did not give up for 11 years until they really struck it big. In 1971, they got their first record contract with Atlantic Records. They produced 3 albums. None were very successful. They were incredibly good albums. They produced no big hits. And in 1975, they were dumped by Atlantic Records. Then in 1975, they were picked up by RCA, and they had their first top 10 hit with Sarah's Smile in 1975. Then, 2 years later, in 1977, they had their first #1 hit with Rich Girl. And then, that's still 3 years away from 1980 and where they blow up. So they still have 3 years of developing to do. And then in 1980, they're going to do an album called Voices. Now, they say that this album, if it doesn't sell well, it's going to be their last. They're not going to keep doing this. They will call it quits if this album is not huge. Well, they release Voices, and the hits just start tumbling off this album. Another thing happens in 1980, MTV starts, and they become the darlings of MTV. By 1984, they are declared the largest and the greatest singing duo in rock music history. By 1985, they decide to call it quits and step back at the height of their career. They have had enough, they want a break, and for 3 years they stopped doing music. Their chart dominance is pretty much over at that time. By 1988, they come back, they reform, they do some more recordings, but they never achieve the same success that they had before. And they start focusing on their solo efforts at that time. And all the way to today. And they are the topic of your Tuesday morning fun fact. Here's your Tuesday morning fun fact. File this one in the I can take a hint from the universe department. Here's how they actually met. Daryl, Hall, and John Oates are each playing in separate soul bands. The soul bands are playing a gig together in a very rough part of Philadelphia. A fight breaks out in the audience. Gunshots ring out. Everybody heads for the exits to go down the stairs and get out. Daryl, Hall, and John Oates head to the back of the venue. They get in the freight elevator together. And that's where they met, in that freight elevator, going down to escape the gunfight. Well, they find out they have common interests and they become friends and they start hanging out. And then John Oates takes off for Europe to go to school for a year, and he needs to sublet his apartment. Daryl Hall has a sister who has a boyfriend, and they're looking for an apartment, okay? So Daryl asks John if he would sublet his apartment to his sister for a year. John says, sure. Daryl Hall's sister moves in with her boyfriend, okay? So John Oates comes back from Europe in a year and finds out that Daryl's sister did not pay any rent. There's a padlock on the door, and all of his stuff is gone. Daryl feels guilty. He feels somewhat responsible. It was his sister. So he takes pity on John and asks him to move in, rent-free, to his apartment. And during that time together living in an apartment, that's where they start their songwriting, and that's where they start their partnership. Sometimes the universe is just going to put you together no matter what. And there's your Tuesday morning fun fact. Let's go back to 1980, to that Voices album. This is my favorite cut from the album. It's a Daryl Hall song. It was covered by Paul Young in 1985 and turned into a big hit. It was never a hit by Hall and Oates, but it's one of my favorite songs. So please don't go away. I'll be right back. Thank you so much for stopping by. It's such a joy to spend time with you every week. If you have a second, please like the show. If the Spirit moves you, please share the show on your social media because you are my word of mouth and I really appreciate all you do. Please come back and see me next week. And remember, you're never ready for your day without a song in your heart. Bye now.